So after Wonder Woman used her giant kaiju sword to slice the Tetraside in half, I thought the Tetraside was dead. But in the latest issue of Absolute Wonder Woman, which yes, we are covering right now, it's revealed that the Tetraside not only survived the Great Slash, but it literally started healing itself and pulling all of its guts back together. So the US military came in to give Wonder Woman a helping hand, blasting the Tetraside with a bunch of freaking missiles, but only one of the missiles was a successful hit because the Tetraside batted all the other missiles away into the city, which meant that a bunch of buildings and skyscrapers were about to be destroyed if Diana didn't stop them. So she blasted her way up into the sky, where she would then conjure a spell that summoned all these little magical portals to deflect all of the missiles. However, seconds later, she started to panic because she realized that one of the missiles went unnoticed, and this missile was far too out of range for her to be able to reach it in time before it exploded. But thankfully, coming in clutch just in time was none other than her noble steed Pegasus, blasting it with a bunch of hellfire before it could erupt on one of the nearby buildings. After that, Diana flew over to one of the jet pilots, kindly requesting that him and his men stopped shooting missiles because if they continued to do so, things were gonna get real ugly. However, she would then go back over to the Tetraside and begin pulling out an all-new green lasso that we've never seen before. Unfortunately, we don't get to see her put it into action right away though, because the story then switches things over to the past when she was first gifted this lasso by her mother Cersei. And apparently this lasso is regarded as sacrifice, and it was only meant to be used as a last resort. We then see that Diana was made to go on sort of a test run with this lasso against one of hell's many horrific creatures, so she would know how to use it just in case she was ever forced to use it during a real battle. And after successfully defeating the creature with it, Diana met back up with her mother, telling her that it worked very well, but she also found it a bit cruel. And Cersei was kind of disappointed after hearing this and kind of felt like Diana was unappreciative and needed a reality check. So she told her, look, not everything you meet is gonna decide to be your best friend, and some beings are not only gonna reject your hand of friendship, but they're just straight up gonna try and kill you right away. And people like that are what the sacrifice lasso was made for. So you should take a moment to appreciate it instead of cursing its compromises. Nevertheless, moments later, when Cersei left the campfire, Diana was paid a visit by the goddess of magic Hecate, expressing that her mother didn't make this weapon without good reason. She made this lasso with love, pain, fire, and blood because she knew Diana would eventually need it because she could see into the future. And what this sort of conundrum really highlights is the contrast between Diana being raised in hell compared to being raised as just a normal Amazonian. I love that it kind of just highlights the struggle of her being raised in a different environment, because at the very core of Diana, ever since the beginning of her creation, she's always had a super soft nature to her and a very kind spirit. And so her coming to the Absolute universe and being raised in hell, she's forced to do things that she wouldn't normally do and forced to be a bit more brutal than she would normally be. And you could see how big of an impact that it's having on her and how she's struggling to come to terms with it. Anyways, later on, Diana goes back over to her mother to reconciliate and make peace with her, and she says, look, sacrifice is not the weapon I would have made for myself, but I now see that it is a good thing and that my vision is narrow. I will always benefit from other eyes, and I was wrong to doubt you, but now you must teach me how to master it. Which is exactly when the story brings us back over to present day, and if you guys have made it this far, you are in for a freaking treat, because this part is so freaking awesome, dude. Because Diana literally starts wrapping the lasso around her arm, transforming her into a giant freaking Medusa. And the reason that this transformation is so critical, and probably one of the other reasons that Diana didn't like this weapon and didn't want to go through with it, is because right here she says, this mantle must I accept today for a far greater good, in hope and faith that I will once again someday be Diana of the Wild Isle, which implies that this transformation could be a permanent thing unless something reverses it. And this whole thing was being broadcast on the news, so everybody saw her transform into the Medusa, including Steve, the girl Barbara she met earlier, Steve's witch friend Gia, and moments later, when the Tetraside looked Diana into the eye, completely turning to stone, all of them were confused because Diana wasn't transforming back into her normal Amazonian self, which brought them to the conclusion that Diana needed to somehow remember what she was before in order to ignite the transformation. So without hesitation, because she literally sacrificed her arm for him, Steve put a blindfold on, so when he was near near Diana, he wouldn't turn to stone, and upon talking to her and reminding her of who she was, thankfully Diana was able to go back to her normal self. So they celebrated their victory by embracing each other with a hug, but the job wasn't finished yet because the Tetraside was just a giant stone statue in the middle of the ocean. So Diana blasted off into the sky once again and then clobbered the Tetraside with so much force that it exploded into a million pieces. Anyways, after that, Diana went back over to the beach where Steve and all of her new friends were, where Steve asked her if she was leaving now. But according to Diana, she couldn't leave because there was a lot more to be done. However, before being able to further elaborate and explain her next course of action, some sort of giant flaming blue hand popped up from under the ground, grabbing Diana's entire body and pulling her underneath, leaving all of her friends as confused as ever and leaving us eager to know what the heck is gonna happen next. But sadly, that's when this issue comes to an end. But if you guys want to see what happens with Absolute Wonder Woman, let me know in the comments down below.